In The Handmaid's Tale, and Dowd's Aunt Lydia developed a particular soft spot for Janine, a handmaid and one of Aunt Lydia's precious girls. Janine was both lovable and in need of a bit of extra care, something June noticed and acted on as well. Yet while she felt endeared to her, Aunt Lydia's help was still enmeshed with the philosophies of Gilead and often did more harm than good. Ultimately, though, Janine was also the only one who was able to truly get through to Aunt Lydia. In one of the most notable scenes of The Handmaid's Tale's final season, Aunt Lydia encountered Janine in Jezebel's and was shocked to learn that retired handmaids weren't rewarded, as she was told they would be. Still, her reaction was to immediately launch into prayer. Later, in the climactic heist led by June, the handmaid's grand escape was almost thwarted by Aunt Lydia. She was given pause by June's pleas, but it wasn't until Janine entered and explained the true impact of Aunt Lydia's help over the years that she finally told the guards to put their guns down and allowed the handmaids to escape. Aunt Lydia had a deeply misguided affection for all the handmaids in her care, though she was notably moved when any of them suffered injustices that broke even the harsh rules of Gilead. Janine became a symbol of this for Aunt Lydia, of the failure of the system she had put all of her faith into. For years later, the Testaments has just given Aunt Lydia a new representation of Gilead's shortcomings. Becca may push Aunt Lydia to rebellion in the Testament Season 2. Much like when she learned of the true treatment of the handmaids, Aunt Lydia was mortified to see the state of the imprisoned Becca in the Testament Season 1 finale, Secatur. Thanks to Dowd's performance, the emotions swirling within Aunt Lydia were abundantly clear, as were the way those feelings paralleled the way she saw Janine. Like Janine, Becca had been wronged by Gilead in ways that even the dystopia's own dark philosophy couldn't justify. Becca, however, has a starkly different personality from Janine, and this could be the difference that allows Aunt Lydia's eyes to finally, truly open. Before Janine's life took an even darker turn, her character had a somewhat bubbly naivete that likely allowed Aunt Lydia to continue to avoid the harsh reality the handmaids were truly facing. Aunt Lydia wanted to help Janine, but believed that staying the course of Gilead's righteous path was the solution. Becca, meanwhile, is characterized by a misery that she doesn't even attempt to conceal. She knows that no part of a future in Gilead will bring her peace or happiness. Even throughout her wedding ceremony in Secatur, Becca's eyes were glazed over and disconnected, her mouth in a deep frown. If Aunt Lydia truly cares for Becca, her suffering will be impossible to ignore in the Testament Season 2. Aunt Lydia has softened since The Handmaid's Tale image via Hulu. Despite the quasi-maternal affection she developed for Janine, Aunt Lydia was a fearsome figure in The Handmaid's Tale. She was harsh and unforgiving, even shocking Janine with a cattle prod in one of their first encounters. In an elaborate punishment, Aunt Lydia once orchestrated a faux hanging for dozens of handmaids, making them all think they were about to be executed. The Testament's Aunt Lydia is a far cry from that harsh persona. In fact, she is arguably the warmest, most understanding, and forgiving of all the aunts seen in the series. Any woman approaching Gilead leadership about a man's misconduct would not have flown in The Handmaid's Tale. Indeed, Aunt Vidala swiftly corrected Hulda's narrative when she approached her about Dr. Grove. Yet when Agnes went directly to Aunt Lydia with the same information, Aunt Lydia was kind and took the information to heart, immediately planning Dr. Grove's death. Perhaps most notable, though, was Aunt Lydia's reaction to Agnes' declaration that she knows June is her mother. In The Handmaid's Tale, any talk of parents who weren't the Gilead-instated mother and father was thoroughly stamped out. This would likely be of even more importance when it comes to June, given her reputation as a terrorist and a criminal. Yet Aunt Lydia's reply was simply, "I knew your mother. Quite well, actually. One thing I can say about her is that she never gave up." Aunt Lydia's flashbacks should continue in the Testament Season 2. Episode 6, Stadium, detailed the beginning of Gilead's reign from Aunt Lydia's perspective. The episode revealed that Aunt Lydia and Aunt Vidala had worked together before the coup. Yet Aunt Lydia, who immediately thought on her feet to make herself useful to the new regime, was willing to kill Vidala to prove herself to Gilead. As the present-day Aunt Lydia continues to soften and inch towards a total rejection of Gilead, it will become increasingly impactful to interweave flashbacks of her descent into the cold, violent, frightening person she once was. These scenes are an organic way to break up the main story, but more importantly, they can serve as a reminder of how much Aunt Lydia has changed as the Testaments continues.